All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I got a couple of people answering that question with state you're from and how proficient you are. Also got a question here, so thank you. Well, I've had a hell of a day this morning so far, so I am relieved to get here and just clear my mind and talk some automation and some open to close. So thank you for being here. It's a good day for me to take a mental break, and hopefully I can help you guys out with some stuff. All right. Okay, text 6.4. Okay, perfect. Is there a way to print a file or emails after a file closes? Not necessarily print. I mean, there are some ways. So I have some attachments on my computer. One of them is called, let me see if I can figure this out here. This one's called print to PDF, I think. And what you can do is you can like go in here and delete and rearrange and make things look pretty so that it doesn't have advertisements on websites and things like that. So that's one way that you could probably do it. Let me go to an actual property and see if it actually works on there. I've never tried it. It depends on what you're looking for too, I guess. Depends on what you're looking for as far as printing goes. Go ahead and pop in some more details on that. Like, what would you want to have from the program? Do you want like a list of your files, a list of your fields? Like, what are we looking for here? And let me just try my print button. It's a big page, so let me see. No, it doesn't really do a great job even with this one of printing. But what you can do is we really do need an export all button, I guess, in the documents. That would be kind of a nice button to have. As far as the fields, we can either API sync those. Oh, I know one thing you could do actually that would probably be helpful. And depending on what information you want, you would come to your property screen, you would come down here to table columns, and you could create a view, right? You could create a, hold on, let me go over here. You can create a table and a segment. So maybe you want to see, what did you say after it closes? So you could say, show me all my closed properties for this month, right? So closings this month. I don't know if anything's in here, but we'll try it. Closings this month. And then you would come over here, close date, maybe contract stat. Well, they would all be closed. So you probably wouldn't need that, but contact client type. Let's see what else is in here. But you could create other stuff. You can come in here and say, I want this field. I want the, whether there was an HOA, I want, who closed it, where the signing was, whatever. You can put all that stuff in here from the fields. And then once you have that in your table here, what you can do is export that to a CSV file, or you can use our API for this to happen automatically at the end of every day. So at the end of every day, you can say, take my closed files from this table and export them out to Google Sheets or Excel or wherever you want. So that may be a solution for you. You can just do that on a daily basis anyway. You could create a really big table here. Now, just be aware, the bigger the table, the longer it's going to take to load. But you could create a table that has quite a few values in here, and then just have an API expert go in here and say, every day at 5 o'clock, I want to take all this information out and put it into a Google Sheet for me, or I want to put it into Excel, or I want to put it into DataBox like program or something like that. So that would be the only way to do it right now, unfortunately, Gina. But in the future, I think, we'll probably come up with some type of zip file where we can zip.
Andrew.
Yes.
So it was actually a newer feature where under the documents tab on a property, Shane did add in the option to zip file multiple docs.
Awesome. When did he add that?
I don't know the exact date. I'd have to check Shane's log on it. I think in the last month. It was pretty recent.
Awesome. Oh, that's good. We've been talking about that for years. Honestly, we've been talking about it since TC Workflow, but I'm glad that he put that in. So it's down towards the bottom, or do you have to select the file?
If you select several documents there, it should be under your options, I believe.
Export?
And it will export as a zip file there.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No one told me about that one yet. So I know we've been talking about that for a while. So what's it going to zip? Is it just the documents, Jana, or is it other information as well?
It would just be the documents at that time. So this would be a great tool functionality for, especially when you close down your file, if you need to create a entire zip file of all of your documents, and then you could pair that with what you're saying there with your field data if needed.
Yeah. that's, I just kind of want to tie it all together, knowing the functionality here. So if this brings the documents out, guys, then the only other thing you're probably going to want to bring out is your fields. Obviously you could do contacts through, and so I would do this probably monthly instead of per file, just so it's not so much of a time suck, but maybe every month or every quarter or whatever you want to do, go to your documents, pull those out. You could do the documents at the end of each file because that's going to be per file. But then you could come over here and create this filter or this table for all of the fields you want to see. Okay. And then you could come over to contacts and you could actually have a filter for the contacts as well and pull those contacts. I don't think you would really need contacts because you can come in here and look at those anytime. But if you do want to get that detailed, you could do that. So I'm assuming, Gina, are you from California? I'm just asking because I know California is kind of strict on, getting that information after the file. Colorado. Okay, cool. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question enough. If you have any follow-ups, feel free to go ahead and post that. What is the standard font? That is a great question that I cannot remember off the top of my head. Jana, do you know the font by chance? I'm gonna Slack someone and see if I can find this out.
I feel like it's Arial, but let me check. I think with how it's set up is in the system, it's going to show as a font. And then when you send it to, let's say, an email inbox, your email inbox will actually control that user's font view. So I would want to clarify, are you asking about the fonts when you're creating your emails? Or is this just the font of the system? Okay. Let me pull it up. I think it's Arial, the initial default, and then Helvetica, I think, is next, but Sans maybe in there too.
Okay. Well, I asked the dev team too to see if they had something they could give to us real quick. So I'll answer that question if they get back to me, Gina. All right. So let's see. I consult with blah, blah, blah. I'm in California. Not sure I've reached level 3 yet, but I'm learning. Okay, cool. Yeah, Todd. I mean, it takes a while, right? Don't put pressure on yourself to learn this whole program in one day. This is definitely, you want to get the foundation in and work on that foundation, get comfortable. Anyone that's feeling frustrated, definitely reach out to support, come to our group classes. You can come over here to Learn tab, come to webinars, go to some of our group classes. Obviously, you guys are here, so thanks for being at our workshop Wednesdays. And then we have the product tour, which you guys don't need anymore, but come down here and fields and emails and texts. And these are great resources. Plus, you can reach out to the support team down the bottom right-hand corner. There's a lot of different ways you can get. There's one-on-ones you can do with our onboarding and implementation team. So feel free to utilize those as well by emailing help at open to close and then get you prices and all that good stuff. All right. Let's see here. Can you apply a field template through a trigger or condition? So field templates are not meant for yet. Okay, so I'll go into two things. I'll go into how they're used now and how they may be used in the future. We haven't finished this yet, but the way field templates are created, they're created for manual transactions. So if you're not using our intake forms and you're creating a manual transaction, you can apply a field template and it's going to grab all the fields in that field template and put it into your transaction. Field templates don't work after the fact, and that's why we use field sections. And so if I go over here to, let me just go to a property again, I'll go to triggers. Okay, so in here, the reason we use field sections and fields in here instead of a field template is because when you put a secondary field template in, so I apply a field template called template 1, and then when I apply template 2 field template, it's going to actually take all the first fields out and put the second fields in. So that doesn't work for most people. Now, what we would want to see in the future, what we're talking about is that template comes in. If you're on a manual transaction, it works the same. But if you actually put in an intake form, those field templates would come in on top of the current fields or get subtracted out of the current field. So down the line, we may have something like that. Right now, it doesn't work that way. What you're going to want to do is bring in field sections. So this listener right here, if you have a trigger here, and it's if buyer response to repairs is equal to buyer ask for repairs, then I want to put in the repairs request field section. And this is constantly listening. So if you have this trigger tab here, it means you're on the scale plan. This is constantly listening. So if this comes in, I could change those fields and it could go back out. And then I could change the fields to buyer ask for repairs again, and it comes back in. I could take that out and it would go out. So those don't need to be changed. Those live in here forever. If you're using triggers with templates and things like that, those templates are going to come up to the health bar, because what we don't want to do is accidentally delete out the the task template that you're working on. Let's say you've completed 20 of 30 tasks and you accidentally remove that. When you put it back in, it's going to put in all 30 tasks again, and you're not going to have a record of your deleted tasks, or your completed tasks, I should say. So we got to be real careful with what we do as far as automation on the listeners, and as far as automation on fields and templates and things like that. It just gets sticky. And we got to think through what could happen if you accidentally fat finger something, or accidentally change a field to something you didn't mean to. So again, just to kind of reiterate, field templates are mainly used for coming through the API or a manual transaction. Okay. If you're using our intake forms and you want to add fields after the fact, you're going to want to use field sections and individual fields and bring those in that way. So if septic is yes, bring in my septic field section. If HOA is yes, bring in my HOA field section. If financing is cash, take out my fields for financing, that sort of thing. All right. I had so this is a follow-up to the export of the transaction. She had an agent that was sued at some point, and he wanted a secondary record of the file post-closing. Sure. So yeah, I would say the best option we have right now is the export on the documents, and then you could actually have this table filter by contact, and that contact would be the agent. Okay, so it just show that agent's things that you've worked on, and you could actually pull out all that information in one nice Excel sheet for them. And if you don't need it throughout the year, like if it's just like when it comes up, you could actually send it to them at the end of the year with the what do we have to send them at the end of the year? The settlement statement from their transactions. Like when you're sending those to the sellers and buyers for your transactions, you could send these tables. You could have a VA easily do this, or you could just set it up through the API to have it automatically happen. And then you could send those off at the end of the year too. And the agents may appreciate that as they're doing their taxes, making sure that, they've accounted for all their transactions and what happened and what the commissions were and all that good stuff. Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna actually read this response unit because this is good. Because I think a lot of people are in your boat when they get in here. So I feel like I'm a 3 proficiency. I have a decent understanding of how the system can function, but currently at the process where I'm considering scrapping the whole thing, as either I built it wrong or it's not as efficient as I hoped it would be. I guess I'm missing a higher strategy. Sounds like I need to contact help to discuss further. Yeah, so this is great. I'm glad you posted this, because a lot of people feel this way. A lot of people get on the system and they feel like maybe they went down the wrong path. Really imperative that when you're getting on the system that you're utilizing the help that we have, whether it's the group classes, which I highly recommend going to those because they're going to talk a lot about strategy and best practices on setting up the system these Wednesdays. But I don't know what you need to know. So it has to be good questions, right? To get to dig down and figure out what the piece of the software is that you need help with. And then our support staff. So definitely utilize those. I would definitely start with some of the group classes. The things that we want to do is get into that. We want to get your foundation set. So when people come in the system, it's exciting, right? To see Smartblocks, it's exciting to see some of the automation triggers and things like that. But what we want to do is just work the system the exact way that you're working transactions now. So we get that base in of how you're working transactions now until you get comfortable with the menus and the buttons and like, how do I change a field on this property without having to get into it? Well, you just click details and it pops out, right? So little things like that, little shortcuts. So get used to the system the way you're doing transactions now. And yes, it may go from 10 minutes to take to do something to 12 minutes to do something at first. That's okay. This is a grand plan. So what you want to do is get comfortable with the system and then start adding pieces one by one. Okay, now we're going to start a task, and let's go in here and, fields, contact roles, file roles. Those are usually the first 3 things I recommend. Then emails, tasks, those are kind of the big 5. When you get in here and you're in your tasks, and let's just say you had a task called confirm loan approval received. Well, and every time I check this off, I send an email. Now you can come in here and say, hey, every time I check this off, I send an email. So let's just automate that process. Let's go in here and add an email. And here's my loan approval received email to listing agent and buyer agent when the task is complete. So now when I come over here and I say, oh, this is done, I click that off, and that email can either shoot out automatically, which I don't recommend at first, or it can go up here, and then we can go to our health bar and say, okay, this email is ready to send. Let's go ahead and inspect it. Yeah, that looks good. That all looks good. There's no red on here. Sometimes there's red that says, hey, you're missing this field or you're missing the smart block. So there's no red on this one. It looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and hit send. Or maybe I need to edit some fields, or maybe I need to edit the email, but you can do all that in here. So yeah, I feel your pain, Gina. It is a complicated system. And sometimes it's just hard to grasp, right? Some of the concepts and some of the strategies and best practices. And that's why it's imperative to lean on our staff and kind of go through that, because when you get through that first 10 transactions, typically you're going to see a crazy improvement, and then your acceleration is just going to hockey stick straight up in the air. And you're going to be able to do double, triple, quadruple, 5 times the amount of transactions that you're currently able to do. So if you can go through this short period of pain, you will get to maximum efficiency in the future. So let's see, can't thumbs up the group classes enough. Fantastic benefit. Yeah, group classes are great. So definitely hit those if you're looking for something specific on fields or specific on emails. Definitely hit those things up. What are group classes? Yeah, so that's where I just went a minute ago. So it's over on the homepage. So openandclose.com/webinars. You can also go to the Learn tab and just click on webinars. They're going to be right here. And you can scroll down and you can either get a morning class or an afternoon. So you can see morning in the description, or you can see afternoon, and you can click on those and sign up for those classes. So
I'm actually going to piggyback on that real quick with those. We're going to be making a change here soon. We've gotten some feedback from users, just offering group classes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So we're actually going to shift to having both morning classes here in the very near future. So just a heads up on that. Currently, they're all on Wednesdays, but we are going to open up a Tuesday option at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard.
Cool. Thanks, Jenna. All right. Let's see. We got that one done. What are group classes? Yep. Okay, cool. All right. We're out of questions. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about setup. When you first come on the program, I know I mentioned this a lot in these classes, but get familiar with the menus and like, hey, if you want to know what changed in the program, we have a change log here. Come to the change log and check out what's changing. Get familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, get familiar with where your plan and billing is, Idea Lab, the support center with all the articles, you got lots of resources in here as well. Also get familiar with some things like the global settings, especially the default global settings. These can change the way that your transactions are done. You're like, hey, I'm spending a lot of time renaming all these files from agents. We'll just set the file role and have it rename automatically. Like there's a ton of little shortcut things that you can do in here to make it look more like the way you want to make it look, or to save you time. So get to know your organization screen, get to know how the teams work and the roles, and assigning tasks to the roles so that they automatically assign to the right people. Lots of things in here to just kind of take your system up to the next level. This menu, this is a great one. And this is over in the task pipeline too, but like there's a lot of shortcuts in here. I don't want to have to click on this transaction, go all the way into it just to see if my dot loop's connected. I can just click dot loop. It's going to pull this up and I can see that I have not connected this and I need to link a property. If I wanted to see my fields, like I showed you before, you can come in here and you can actually edit the fields right here and then close this and I'm right back to where I was. Task pipeline, same thing. If you come in here and all these are on, if you don't see this big box here, go in here and look under this little filter icon. You can turn on things and then you can have it look however you want. If you don't like this middle section, you can take it out. If you don't like this section, you can take it out. If you're on the Pro plan or higher on the version 2, you will have these buttons here. And these are shortcuts. So if I need to send an email on this property and I don't want to have to leave the task menu, I can just click on it and I can send an email really quick. So lots of different shortcuts. These are going to change your life if you get used to them. It's going to make things much more efficient. Okay, the schedule change will be welcome. Wednesday is a training heavy day currently. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll be offering more options as we get bigger. Our staff we're pretty lean, so we run pretty efficiently right now, but as we get a little bit bigger, we'll be able to offer more resources to you guys. But if something doesn't work for you guys, like it's outside your normal schedule, feel free, just email help@openandclose, let us know, because the more feedback we get, the more we can customize it to what people like to see. All right. What else do we need to talk about? Any questions that have come up this week that anyone wants to chime in with? No. Okay.
I think things have been pretty standard lately, just with setup.
Oh, I could talk about some of the new features that are,
Perfect.
I could talk about some of those. So if I'm in this property, and so one of the things that some people do is they list all their dates like this. I'm not a huge fan of this. Jana's probably laughing right now because I'm very outspoken about not being a fan of this. But I get the point. Like, you want to see all your dates and you want to see them in order here, and you want to see what's happening in your transaction. The problem I have with this is, like, if I have a septic section of my fields, I want my septic dates in my septic section. That's always created an issue of like this. Do I want to put them here for ease of use, or do I want to hide all these fields down in my sections and have to scroll through all these? Now, there is a find button. Obviously, you can search fields, Control G, and pull open a field and say septic, and it's going to list all your septic fields, and then you can go in and change these fields. So there are shortcuts to this, but you still want to be able to easily access them and be able to find them quickly. So what the dev team did for us is, if we didn't have this big section over here to the left with all these dates in it, and they were just all kind of hidden in the sections, now you can click on this and you can see all your dates. So I can see that my dates are, my closing dates here. I click on it. Now I can edit that. So this is going to be a huge help to have this in here. The other thing that's not released yet, but we're working on it really hard. Well, the dev team's working on it really hard. I'm not doing much. But the ability to set custom dates for holidays. So putting holidays in. So let's say Christmas lands on a Saturday, having that roll back to Friday for the observed date. Or if Christmas lands on a Sunday, having it roll to Monday for the observed date. Being able to put in Juneteenth, right? That was one of the ones that was missing from our library that we created when we coded this program. So being able to edit what's currently there to fit your needs. And if you're from Canada, be able to delete out all the US based holidays and go ahead and put in the Canadian holidays. Or if you're from Mexico, go ahead and delete out and make the Mexican holidays in there. So we're going to make it really custom, where you can delete, you can leave the 12 holidays that we have in there. But you can add on to it if you want. So that's coming probably in the next, 3-4 months, and maybe sooner, who knows, but that's something that they're working on currently. Okay. I'm not a fan of the critical dates, critical deadline section either, but that is preferred by my client. Yeah, no, I get it. It's handy. I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not. The only reason I don't like it is because I really like to be able to say, I like to have this section here. I like to have my intake questions, right? And these are all the questions that might get answered on an intake form. And these should be filled out already by the time they come in here. But let's say that you go out to the thing, or you go out to the property and you find a well. They didn't list it on the property description. The inspector goes out and is like, hey guys, this has a well. And now you have to change this from no to yes. Well, I want to be able to change this here, and then all of my dates come in. So I don't want to have the complexity of saying, bring in this one field here and this one field here, and then this section down here. I just want to say, bring in this section. The reason is because I don't want to have to remember, right? If something changes and I want to change that field in the future, you have to go in and remember that this is part of your dates and that you need to change it. With a field section, if you add or subtract stuff from the field section, when the field section comes in, it comes in correct every time. It doesn't matter what you've done to it in the meantime. So if I've deleted out these 2 dates and I've added 7 more, when I initiate that section to come in currently today, it's going to have the right information in here, and I didn't have to remember to go and change things. If I change something up here with a date, and let's say I add a new date, I have to remember to delete the old one and change all my automations and my intake forms and my trigger menus and things like that. So that's where I think it just adds a layer of complexity. And maybe it's just because I'm not very detail oriented like most of you people on this call. And so I forget things a lot. And so I don't want to forget something and accidentally trigger something that I didn't want to trigger. Okay. What is the easiest way to mark a task complete with a trigger attached that you don't need to send? So I'm assuming you don't want to send the email right away. And you can clarify that if I'm wrong. But yeah, in your tasks, you would have a trigger in here. And let's say that you have an email that gets triggered when this task is complete. When you click on this, you have the option in here. If you're on the Pro Planner or higher, you have the option to say, send this automatically when I click the trigger off, when I click the task off. So here, auto send, that's going to pop up and it's going to like shake at you so that it's like, hey, we're sending this automatically, don't forget. Or you can have this email go up to the health bar. Now, if you don't need an email in here, you don't need a trigger. See, this one doesn't have one. So when I check this off, nothing happens because there's no trigger on it. It's only going to happen when there's a trigger on it. It's either the trigger is going to send to the health bar or it's going to send out automatically depending on what type of trigger it is. Okay. So hopefully that answered your question. If I read that wrong, feel free to elaborate on that a little bit. What else? What else you guys got? What else do you want to hear about? I don't want to, oh, here is a refresh button. Where's the other one? This is the one I want to talk about. This was added recently. And let's say you want to edit like 5 dates, right? And you don't want to have to scroll around. Maybe there's a date down here. Maybe there's a date up here, whatever. You don't want to have to keep scrolling through these and changing them. What you can do is a multiple edit. So this is the property edit form. If you click on this, it's going to open up the fields. And now I'm going to be able to go through here. And oh, this looks different than the last time I got in here. Cool. Okay, so you can come in here and edit these dates very quickly. So I can come in here and, you know, put a date. Oh, this is the days. So put a days in here. Check that box. Come up here. Here's the days too. Go ahead and put that in there. Where's a date? Let me see if I can find a date. I don't have any dates to fill out here. All the dates are filled. Anyway, if you click on it, you can just click on the date, click this little button, and now it's not going to take you off there. You can just work in that whole field section. And if you need to go to another field section, you can just click on it, and then you can work in this field section. I think Zoom is slowing us down here today, but you get the point. All right, still no questions. Well, we're a half hour through. If you guys want to end it, we can end it. If you guys have anything you want to know about, just feel free to, you know, it could be very general. If you just want to know about intake submissions or whatever, we can kind of go through some of that stuff. But if I don't have any more questions in 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and end it, but I'll give you guys some time to post some stuff up. Anything you're having trouble with, anything I can go into, anything you've struggled with in the past that maybe someone else could get some good information from, anything at all, go ahead and post them up. Now, one thing that I know that people aren't using quite a bit is this history. This is really nice. If you've been working in Taylor and you're on a different screen and, you know, let's just say you're over here. Oops, let's go to my submitted screen. And I need to go back to Taylor quickly. Like there's no reason to back all the way back out and click on that. Just hit history and it's going to have Taylor right here. And you can either do stuff from Taylor. Like if you just want to change a field on Taylor, you don't even have to leave the screen. You can just hit this. It's going to pop open my dates. So anyway, using that history, get used to that. If you want to see the health bar for Taylor, I can pull up the health bar and now I can actually complete things from this screen as well without ever having to leave this screen. So lots of shortcuts, definitely get familiar with those. Can you show us in your system how you would start work throughout the day? Yeah, it's a tough one because it's an implementation account, but I can kind of give you an idea how a lot of people are doing it. So there's 2 schools, actually there's 3 schools of thought on this. Some people are working out of this screen and they are color coding these. So if this is filled in, it's going to highlight it, whatever. Orange may be done for you or blue may be done for you or whatever. So as soon as these are filled in, they turn blue, then you can get a graphical representation of what's done and they work in kind of a spreadsheet type view. A lot of people that were working in this are going away from it and they're starting to, and let me show you the other way first. And then a lot of people are migrating to the task pipeline, but let me go into a property. And a lot of people are just going into each property and working through their tasks. So they're just working through their tasks. They go to the next property and then they work through those tasks. But the way that I've seen it most successful so far is utilizing these pipelines and having filters in here. So at the beginning of each day, I may work on my new files or my inspections or my appraisals or whatever your preference is, right? So you go down and you put in your filters. So let's just say all my appraisal stuff is listed under red. I could do it that way, or I could put a tag on my tasks that say this is an inspection task. And so I can change that back to no color. And this is just going to pull up all my inspection tasks. You can see the tags in here on each of your tasks. So this does involve some work. You got to put tags on your tasks, but it's really cool for this aspect. You can say, show me all my buyers with inspections, or show me all my sellers with inspections coming, or whatever. And then in here, you can come in here and say, now create this snapshot, create a new snapshot. You can name it number 1, first thing I do during the day, and then what it is. And then you can come create another snapshot. Number 2, what do I do during the day? Number 3, what do I do? And people just work through these snapshots. They'll click on the first snapshot and it'll put all of the things in here that we had as our filters. And then it will show all of the things that I need to do. And hopefully they're all on today or tomorrow or 2 days instead of past due, but we don't update this account very much. So, but you can see, you can come in here and hopefully this is just empty. And then you can come in here and work through your tasks for today. And then if you want to get ahead of the game, you can work tomorrow or 2 days. And then once you're done with your today task for this, you can come in here and you can grab your second one. Maybe this is number 2. Boom, click that one. And now I'm going to work through these. And then you go to number 3. And now I'm going to work some of these. And like I mentioned before, if you have these on, you're going to be able to do a lot more. So I can come in here and you can sort them by property too. So let's say you don't want to actually work in the property, but you just want to see one property in here. You can come in here and say, there's 321 West Olive. This is the filter for this. And you actually have your health bar here. You have all your shortcuts here. Let me take out the pending. Let me just take this out real quick. Okay. So here are all your tasks. But as you notice, all the date or all the addresses are the same because we've specified that we just want to see the tasks from West Olive. And that gives you these extra options here to look at your health bar and work through everything that needs to do on this property. Maybe even like fields that you needed to look at or contacts you need to look at. So this is the way most people are working through it. If you have any follow-ups, you want to talk about other aspects of the program. But this has access to everything. You got your documents here. So you can go through all your documents. You can upload, download. You can do everything you could do from inside the property. You always have these shortcut buttons around here as well. So this makes it highly efficient. Now, if you're on triggers, and you're not on task, I'm just talking about tasks because 90% of people are on task. But if you're the 10% that are using triggers, you also have a pipeline and you're able to see triggers over here as well. So, all right, cool. Could you please go over how to customize the commission template? I'm going to skip that one because that's a big one. Well, let's just jump over there. That's fine. Jana, what was the one with the good commission template that I can look at in here?
I think it was a West Taylor, but we have a few West Taylors.
Okay.
Hannah?
You know what we can do? Can you guys, for one of these, just with whatever is in there, just put like commission in front of it, so future ones we can just type in commission and find it.
I think it might be the one that you actually clicked on.
Awesome. That'd be awesome. Hannah's commission.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
This one I used on my call the other day. So I'll show you some aspects of this commission template that are really cool. So you would be working in templates, Laura, and you would go over and you would design this how you want to look, right? You would have your logo in there. You may want the buyer to show up. Maybe this is the buyer template. So you want the buyer to show up. You want like, here's another buyer, the buyer name. You want the buyer is another buyer, but maybe you want the buyer agent on here. Maybe you want whatever. You can put in whatever widgets you want. You just add a new widget. You can type in whatever you want. We wanted to make this really custom for you. So you're not, custom fields, custom titles. We want custom everything so that you can work this the way you want to work it. So you can add your widgets. And then down here, what this can do is it can pull information from fields. So if you come in at the beginning and you have a commission detail section and you're required to fill out these fields to start, right? These are the fields I need on every single one. Maybe it's a Zillow deal that I'm giving the agent 30% of, the brokerage is getting 70%, whatever, whatever all these splits, you can set up commission templates for each one. You fill in some fields, and then when you open this template, what it can do is it can pull these fields over and stick them into the line items in here so that it will calculate correctly. Okay. There's a couple different options on each one. You can look in here and you can see that, do I want the math operator? So do I want this to come from a field? The math operator would be like 3.5% or, whatever, 3.5%, 3%, 2.5%, whatever. So you can choose the field that this is coming from. So if this is the field that, or let's say buyer side commission, this is the field, you're going to sync this to here. Okay. So that's going to come in as the math operator for that. Then here's the sync calculation. Now in this one, do I want to assign a user, right? Because this could be like a commission of some sort. So this could be the buyer agent's commission. You may want to select one of your users, which is your agents, to assign the 6,000 to. Okay, so we can calculate all of the commissions that go to Bob or Sally or whatever later. And then you can also choose fields that you want to sync this to. So you might want to sync this 6,000 back to an empty field. So you can sync in the fields you know, and then sync after the calculation, you can sync back out the fields to the empty fields that you want for reporting purposes. So once it calculates, you can send those calculated totals back out to the fields. Okay, so that's in there. The cool part about this is it can go out many, many levels. I think it's like 20 or 30 different levels it can go out. You have your price. We said it was 3%. It's calculating to 6,000. The team is going to get 3,000, which is 50%. The agent's getting 50%, 3,000. They're also going to split that agent commission into a brokerage split, a showing agent split. You know, you could have many more things, ISAs and whatever you have on your team, you could be splitting this out. And you can always add more levels just by adding. You can add this, and it's going to give you an option to add more levels onto this. And I don't know what just happened. I locked up my screen. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Zoom is just kind of slow today. The cool part is these descriptions, again, are totally custom. So I can create whatever I want. And then I can say, do I want to add a split? Do I want to add a split, copy a field value? Do I want to add or subtract a percent? Add or copy a field value, add or subtract a dollar amount, or copy a field value. So you got a lot of different options in here on how you do this. And like I said, you can keep these going out for 20 to 30 different levels, really powerful. And then when you come down here, you also have an API feed where you can send this data out, but you can download a CDA, and that CDA is going to look like this. Now, this is customizable. Okay, so we saw these were customizable, but we also, this is customizable on what you view. So if you come back over to this, you can say, I don't want to see the 10%, right? So I'm going to take out this calculation. So if you look at this now, you can see that 10%. If everyone saw that, but right here, 10%. Come over here and say, I don't want that calculation anymore. I'm going to download that CDA, and I'm going to click on it. And now that 10% is gone. So you can make this look however you want by manipulating. I don't want the step in there. I don't want the calculation in there. I don't want the step total in there. You can put whatever you want, or you can add them all so that they can have a clear indication of what's happening and how it's calculating. So that's there. I think that's it. Yeah. All right, cool. We have created a long list, but since we've upgraded to scale, we'd like to replace as many tasks as possible with triggers. What's the best way to replace the existing tasks with triggers? Yeah, this good question. The first thing I would do is start with a couple easy ones to test. I would grab this trigger right here, and I would say, what is this trigger? This trigger is send an email when the task is complete. Okay, well, when is this task complete? So confirm loan approval received. Okay, so maybe that's a field. Loan approval received, yes or no, or whatever. Over here, I would change that to yes. And instead of having this task, I could completely delete this task. I could come over to my triggers, and I could say, when the field, I can't remember what that field was, but when that equals yes, go ahead and send this email. So now you don't have to remember to go to your task list and check it off. What you're going to do is just wait for this field to be changed, and this email is going to pop up into your health bar and say, hey, it's red. No red before bed, right? We got to get that done before the end of the day. We have to send this email. So now it's going to alert you that this email is ready to go out. So you're constantly looking at this health bar, making sure that you know when it turns red. Okay. And I would just do one, right? You want to start out with a really easy one first. You want to test it and make sure you're comfortable with how it's working before you go into number two. And then you can go to a couple, and then more task templates, and you just keep going through all your task templates, and slowly you can get down to very few tasks. Your tasks might be just reminders for your TCs, but a lot of these tasks, if you really think about them, you can change them into a trigger.
And just to piggyback on that too, one thing that I would recommend for users transitioning from task-based to property trigger-based is, like Andrew's mentioning, it's very much controlled by your fields, file roles, contact roles that you're updating on your property. So if you're not already, Laura, I would look at using the color coding for your fields. So if a field is blank and it's needed to be updated, and have that, shaded red. So that way it stands out amongst your other fields on your property. Once you have that field updated, it can, change to a green color, depending on if it's a choice option. So that can be helpful just for awareness over the fields that you need to be updating for those property triggers to queue up correctly.
Yeah, great point. So I don't use yes or no's, by the way. I use blank and not blank most of the time. It's like, hey, if this, and I do a lot of dates. So I'm going to give you a little tip here, and this works for me. It may not work for everybody, but instead of having yes or no, I have a date. As soon as the TC gets the whatever disclosure report and they receive it, it goes in disclosure received. But they don't put a yes, they put a date. It serves two purposes. The first purpose is I've received it. I know it. If there's a date in there, obviously I received it. So now I can say, if this field is not blank, do X, right? But I also have my date. And so when I receive it, I know in my contract that 5 days later, I need to have it signed and back to the other party. So what I can do in my date template now is take the first date that I put in, add 5 days to it, or whatever, if they write something else in, you can handle that too. That's why we have all these days fields. So if like the inspection contingency is 10 in the contract, but they wrote in 5, you could just type in 5 in here and it's going to overwrite the 10 and work the correct way. So you don't have to go in and count on your fingers how many dates. So what I do is I put in this contingency date that I received it. It's going to calculate the 5 days for when I need to get it back. And now all of my other tasks or triggers or whatever I'm using are based on the dates that I'm putting in and the dates that it's calculating to get it back. So now it's reminding me 2 days before I have to have it back. Like, hey, did you get this back to them? Hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do that? You can also control that by, I think Janet touched on it there for a second, but documents. If I have this document, kill this. Like, I don't need to send this anymore if I have this document. But if I don't have it by a certain date, I need to send a reminder email out or a reminder text out, or I need to add 2 more tasks or whatever. You can go down a rabbit hole on this for sure. Just do a little bit at a time and make sure you're testing in between. You don't want to do 10 or 15 changes to the system without testing, because if something didn't work, now you have to go back through 15 different things to try to figure it out, where if you just do 1 change at a time and test it, it's very easy, and it's a controlled environment, which you're not going to get too far off course. So just like a plane, think of a plane flying from New York to San Francisco. It has autopilot. So it gets off its course a little bit and it auto corrects every minute. That's kind of what we're doing with these tasks, is we're testing so that we, if they didn't have autocorrect on that plane, you might end up in Canada. So what we're doing is correcting 365 times, or, however many times it needs in between, so that we're not getting too far off course. And then it's a real debacle. And then you're contacting support and we're trying to diagnose your whole system. What changes did you make? When did you make these? How did you go about it? It becomes a real nightmare to try to track these mistakes down. Or just, sometimes I was doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning and I would come in and realize that I put a, if this is yes, instead of if this is no, or if this is blank instead of not blank. It's really easy to make mistakes. So you just want to make sure you're proficient on testing. Oh yeah, I see Laura put in here, instead of creating yes or no, can we use a condition if this field is blank? Yes, definitely. I would definitely do that. Just take that one out of here. Can the color coding be changed automatically if the field's completed? Yes, it can. That's what I was getting in here to show you. So I forget how to do this, honestly. Let me go to a date here. Okay, so here it is. Table background color. So this is the default cell color when this field is added to a property. So you could have all your fields come in red, or I wouldn't do that. That would my brain would explode. But you could just have it no color when it comes in, right? Or maybe you want red. So
that will actually work on the reverse. Once you add a value, we'll switch to that color. It's looking like
this one.
I was testing it.
The default table cell color. This should come in automatically. If that's not working, let's talk about that after this.
Okay.
But then you could do let's see here.
Choose a choice option field if you can.
Yeah, let me do a choice option. That'll be the easiest to show. Okay, so your choice options have them too. So you can say, if I put buyer in here, let's make this color, but if I put seller, let's make it this color. And if I put dual, let's make it this color. So now when I select dual, that's going to change yellow. If I select seller, it's going to be this pinky color. And then I don't even know what color this is, like kind of an orangey color for buyer. So when I select these, it's going to change. So let me go ahead. That should have automatically updated there. I'm gonna, what is this contract client type? Okay, so let's go over to a transaction real quick and contract client type. Now it won't retro. See how these are still blank? It's because this doesn't work retroactively. But if I come in here now and change this to buyer, it is going to change it. Okay, if I change this to seller, I hope I'm not screwing up your template transactions here. So, but there you go. Now it's this kind of pinky purple color. So, all right, cool. Let's see. That's good. Okay, I have a smart block for Black Hills Energy. I have another smart block for Mid-American Energy. In my email, even though my field is choosing only one of the energy companies, says Black Hill Energy, the email is pulling both smart blocks. Any ideas on how to fix it? Without being able to dig into it, probably not, but let's just kind of go in here and I'll show you some things to, oops, sorry. There we go. So I guess let me go into an email because it'll be easier to do it this way. Whoops. Let's email templates. There we go. Okay, so let's just pretend these are both smart blocks. What you want to do is just check, make sure your smart blocks are formatted right. They shouldn't have any formatting in here. These shouldn't be bold. Let's pretend this is a smart block. It's a merge field, but we're just pretend these are two. They shouldn't have any bold, shouldn't have any italics, it shouldn't have any underlines, shouldn't have anything on the smart block. All the formatting will be inside the smart block. That's one thing that screws our smart blocks up a little bit. Okay. So then you can come into, and if it's an easy one like this, it's easy to test, right? It's just, there's nothing else in this email except for two smart blocks. So that's ideal, but obviously it's not the way it works in the real world. Then you come into your smart blocks and you want to look at these conditions. And you want to make sure that one says, if this field choice is Black Hill Energy, then put in this one. Then you go to the other smart block. This smart block should only have one condition in it. If it's Black Hill Energy, then this smart block is coming in. Then you go to you find the other smart block, and maybe this is the other smart block. Then you go to that condition and you say, if this is Mid-American, I think it was, then put in this smart block. So you only want one smart block on each of this, one condition on each of the smart blocks. That way, if this field, and make sure that that field can only have one option. You can't choose two things on one field. Make sure it's, hey, we chose Black Hills Energy? Yeah, Black Hills Energy. If I change this field to this, then one comes in. If they're still both coming in, send it to support with a video if possible, just kind of explaining it, and we'll dig through it, but it's probably going to be a conditional issue that you're dealing with.
You brought up a good point there. I would double check and make sure it's not a multiple choice select type field. Needs to be single choice select.
Single choice option for these, especially if you're going to have conditions on both. The other thing that, oh, good, she posted a follow-up. Exactly what I was going to talk about. Be careful on these inline. Inline means it stays on the same line, right? So if you have this turned off, it's going to bounce the smart block down to the bottom, to another line. So let me show you an example. So this smart block, if it's in line, it will say, hello, John and Bob, right? And Bob is the smart block. This is the and co-buyer agent. So hi, John and Bob. If this was not in line, it would say, hi, John. And then it would skip down to this line and say, and Bob, which doesn't make any sense. So make sure that you're putting your in lines when they're in line and your non-in lines when they're not in line. Okay. So just remember that when you're doing your smart blocks. What's the most efficient way to upload documents? Yeah, a couple of different ways, Gina. I would say that it depends on who you're talking about uploading them. For me, well, not even for me. I mean, I do it a bunch of different ways. One of the ways I would say is under your documents, you have an email. If you click on this email, it copies it to your keyboard. Or it copies it to your computer. And then you can actually send an email to that email address and they're all going to come in. Probably not the most efficient way to do it, but just know that that's there. Emails, you can always email out. Like I have a template email that goes out to my agents after the transaction starts. It says, hey, if you want to email your documents in, here's the email address. And this is a merge field. So there is a merge field in here for this property email address that you can grab and put into your, so it will update every single transaction because every single transaction is TX plus the address and then a long code so no one can hack us, right? And so if you go into your Gmail at any time, you can type in TX and it's actually going to give you a list of all those ones that you've sent to. So you can pull those up pretty quick. So this is one way. The other way is, physically go into the transaction. Not a big fan of this. You can drag over to this upload button and drop it, or you can click the upload and it's going to grab, files and stuff that are here. Or you can, let's see, what other ways? Oh, so if you're in your tasks, like say I'm working on tasks and I'm in my task pipeline and I need to upload a file, I can just click on the shortcut to the documents and then I can drag my stuff over to the upload. Okay. The other ways are through the intake form. What other ways do they come in? I'm trying to think. There's a million different ways you can get them in here. You can do it on your property screen. You can click this and then say documents. And that's going to pop open your documents as well. Jana, what am I missing? Hannah, tell me what I'm missing here. I can't think through all the different scenarios.
Integrations, properties.
Another shortcut button here. Your unapproved documents will come in here and alert you. So that's there.
Do we do the property email address already?
Yep, property email address.
Yeah.
So those
are probably the most common.
Yeah, you may find other stuff in here that I didn't cover, but those are usually the most efficient to either email them in or just drag them over to, depending on what screen you're on, right? Because we didn't want to make it like a one size fits all. So if you're working on tasks, then the most efficient way is to click here and drag those over to the upload. But if you're working in a property and I'm in this property, then the most efficient way is click on documents and drag it over to the upload button. If you're somewhere else, like if you're happen to be in, I don't know, global settings or something, then yeah, there's no way in here. You'd have to X out of this and then download it somewhere else. But in multiple screens, you're able to download. Let's see. Our email subject line contains, for example, buyer last name and property address. Now, I'll clarify something with you after this, but our email subject line contains. Now, are you putting the person's name actually in this, or are you using two separate merge fields for the buyer's name and then the address? That's one thing I need to know first. So buyer's name and property address. If you have two buyers with the same last name, the subject line would look like Smith and Smith dash property address. How do you avoid it? You don't is probably the short answer. The way to get around it, let me think about this for a second. There's probably a way around this that I'm just not thinking of right now. I guess the way to do it would be to, when you're in this transaction, and I don't like this way, so I'm just telling you a workaround for this one specific thing, which may screw up 10 other things. But you can come in here and click on this, and at the beginning of the transaction, type Smith if it's Smith, or Smith and, Jones if it's Smith and Jones. But I don't really recommend this because this is a merge field, this contract, what's it called? Why am I blanking? Contract title. So this contract title is a merge field, and you can use contract title in there, and then it's going to pull in whatever you type in this box. So when I save this, now I have Smith and the address, which I don't personally like, but if this is going to solve your issue, you can do it this way. The other way to do it is the way that you're doing it currently, I think, is with two separate merge fields for the last names, and you're just going to have to deal with Smith and Smith, I think. But let me think through that. If I come up with another solution or the team does, we can definitely reach out. Jana, Hannah, you have any thoughts on that?
I'm thinking through alternatives, but my first thought was the workaround that you mentioned with contract title. I would want to see, are these auto emails or are these emails that you're going up to inspect
Yeah.
before you send? You can always easily delete it out at that point if needed.
Yeah, a little bit of a pain in the ass, but if you don't like it that much, you can definitely, just delete the other Smith if you need to. So those are the only things I can think of now, but if we come up with other stuff, we can definitely reach out. Gina said, I typically upload many documents at once versus one by one. Well, if you're uploading them at the beginning of the transaction, I would recommend, if you're filling out the intake form instead of the agents, I would recommend just downloading as many as you had right then into the intake form. That's the easiest way. Other than that, I mean, still the ways that I showed you are probably the best ways, just to grab them and drag them over, or just hit the upload button and grab them from wherever your file is. So if they're on your, I don't know if you keep them on your laptop or if you keep them in Google Drive or if you keep them wherever. I mean, you can bring in documents from Google Drive as well. So if you have Google Drive, you can bring them in here. If you have .loop, you can bring them in here. If you're uploading them, you can click here, grab your file explorer on your computer and grab a bunch of documents and bring them in. So there are many ways to do it.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest if you're receiving an email with all those documents, email them in, right? Use that property email address and just email them in. That way they come in unapproved. You'll be able to review them, split them if you need to, and then file them away. But yeah, just that's all I can think of. Same thing with the contract title. I would probably make the same suggestion. Either adding in the name into the contract title or editing that email before it goes out.
Cool. Well, we are at 2 minutes. I'll give you guys time for one more question. Anyone have one last question they want to put in here? I'll give you 2 minutes. Well, I'll just kind of do the outro here while we're waiting for one more question, but I appreciate everyone coming. Always a pleasure to have you guys here, especially today. Hell of a day for me. So I appreciate you taking my mind off that for an hour. These were great questions. I think you guys are really getting the concept of the system. Definitely use this as a resource. I mentioned the group classes. I mentioned the support staff. Like, that's what we are here for. We are growing because we want to be more available to you guys. We want to be more involved in your setups and help you with best practices. So you don't feel like, who was it earlier that said they kind of feel like they may have set it up wrong? I can't remember, but we want to be here for you guys so you don't go down that road and feel like you have to reset it up. So utilize what we have available. Reach out if you have suggestions on things we could do better for you. Definitely reach out. But otherwise, again, thank you for being here. We will see you same time, same place next week. Talk to you soon.